I didn't think I was gonna actually talk about this.
As long as it helps somebody.
I know that if you clicked on this video, you've probably experienced some type of bullying. You might be going through it. You might be trying to navigate through things that have happened to you in the past. Or you're just looking for answers. You might also just have clicked on it out of curiosity. But most likely you're looking for either a solution or some answers. Or some insight, which is what I'm hoping for. I will be sharing my personal story. I didn't think that I would, actually, especially when making this channel. I mean, it's a very personal subject. But I will be sharing my story, what I learned, how I essentially healed over time, and then how you can too, if this also applies to you. This video is longer than anything I've ever made, and it is intentional. It is not supposed to be rushed or anything. So if you're here, thank you for being part of the conversation. And if you're simply here for the lessons and the knowledge that I've acquired over the years, feel free to skip ahead. I've added a timestamp below. Although if you can, I hope you'll be able to stay for the full journey, because it is my belief that sometimes hearing somebody else's journey makes you feel less alone in yours. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, this video is going to take a bit longer than what we're used to. And it is not for entertainment purposes. It is for guidance, and it is also for human connection. All right, no special effects, no excessive cuts, no excessive music. It's just you and me. All right, I forgot to even show you all the time, but 3:25. Yeah, you might ask yourself, like, why 3, bro, you know? Way up at 3. Well, at this time of the night or the day, there's room for just you and me. As I said, human connection. There's just gonna be you and me. The whole city's asleep here in Colorado Springs. Everyone's asleep. It's just like the floor is mine, kinda. That's why I chose this time specifically. No interruptions. Just silence, room for my head to reflect properly, and then room for you to also just sit and listen if that's what you feel like doing. Okay. I had a recent conversation with my mom back in Norway where, based off of the title, you probably know what I'm about to talk about, right? I was sitting for 3 hours just listening to all the stories and everything she had to tell me regarding my childhood. Just listening for 3 hours, just taking notes, writing it out, reliving a lot of memories that honestly I had forgotten about. Not a lot of people actually know this about me, and not that I'm not closed off or anything. I feel like I'm very in touch with myself and the things that I do tell about myself. But then there's a time and space for everything, kinda. And I don't always go like, oh, I was bullied as a kid, you know. That it's not a pity party, right? It's very nice out. It's a very, very nice evening. So calm. Just that silence, just being able to think properly, right? Okay. I had this conversation with my mom, and I was able to see the story through her eyes as a parent in regard to everything that was transpiring. I'm not trying to be ambiguous. I'll get to the story. It's just a little prelogue before we get to the actual stuff, right? I'll tell y'all, I grew up in Arendal in Norway, so it's a town down south, really. Back in daycare, life was actually pretty simple, pretty nice. Just an average Ben, an average kid, you know, laughing, playing, having a good time. And my daycare was located at the same place where we would transfer on to elementary school and then middle school and then essentially high school. The area or the school that I ended up attending was named San Franciscus, and it was a private Catholic school. I remember we had on the way to school, we had this road going down into downtown. And I remember on the first day of school having butterflies and telling my mom, butterflies in my stomach and telling my mom, I got butterflies. This is very exciting. I'm at 5 years old, you know, I was very excited to start school and everything. First grade was pretty okay. We had a lot of different teachers growing up, but I remember my first teacher, Ivar. Everyone liked him, very good. Good teacher. In first grade, you know, not big problems at all, really, I think. But then moving on to second grade, that's where it started taking a bit of a turn for the worse, just in my experience, right? And that's why we're here today. It's kind of interesting because, cumulatively, every year after second grade, it just started getting worse and worse and kind of compounding, really. Moving into third grade and fourth grade, things just started snowballing. Looking back at it, it's just a very interesting development. What's even more interesting is the way the perpetrators would also change throughout this story is also the interesting reflection aspect to it. It was not always the same perpetrators, right? I just want to leave with this. This is absolutely not a pity party whatsoever. If I'm able to help just one person with this video, I've succeeded. That's my sole goal. I do not have a big need to be standing here and sharing a personal story with everyone if it was not to help somebody. All right, I do not need people's pity. All right, I've come to terms with my past, who I am and who I've become, and I feel after talking to my mom, hearing her out and actually reliving all of these memories and starting to see it anew over again, I realized that there's probably a lot of people that have been experiencing the same stuff, and there's probably a lot of people that are still experiencing the same stuff who's not yet arrived at that point of insight. All right, whether you want to agree with my insight or not, whether you want to agree that I have insight at all, that's something out of my control. But as I said, the purpose of this video is not to call anybody out. The purpose of this video is not to have a pity party. The purpose of this video is not to show a soft side or anything like that. I mean, as I said, however people would like to interpret this is kind of up to them, right? However they feel like they want to interpret this, go ahead. My goal is to help others, okay? As I said, if I'm able to help one person here and one person walks out of this video with the tools to form a better life for themselves, I have succeeded, okay? So as I mentioned, as of second grade, things just started compounding for the worse all the way up until seventh grade. So all through really elementary school, things were not all that nice. And I'm not going to put a cap on it and talk around it. Things were extremely bad, very bad, and I'll get to why. Waking up every single day, knowing what was coming, knowing what was waiting the moment you stepped onto the schoolyard, the moment you stepped into the classroom. It's almost like you could kind of feel it in the air what was going to happen, right? 5 years. 5 years of that. Call it what you want, but 5 years of what my mom described as hell on my part. I also want to say, the interesting part about this is that when I was talking with my mom, I had forgotten about a lot of this. I remembered specific events, but I do think that children, they have this fantastic ability to of like self-conservation, like self-protection, and the defense mechanisms that they're able to put in place when they're in an environment that is not supporting is very impressive. My mind started locking things out. And after I got out of that environment, I started forgetting things too, as a way of self-preservation, I think. So like, it's very, very, very interesting to look back at and kind of reflect on me as a kid and the ability of self-preservation and kind of just forgetting about these things so that I guess I could go on with my life. I didn't really feel like I had a problem, and I still don't after I got out of that environment. But as my mom was telling me all of this during our 3-hour conversation, a lot of things started coming back, and a lot of things started coming back all at once. And then I started realizing and remembering and thinking, this is way worse than what I thought it actually was. And I was sitting there and I was thinking like, holy crap. I remember it now, and I go, how the system, and just the observers here, how this was allowed to happen to begin with. It's just astounding. As I'm saying, I'm not pointing in fingers. I'm not blaming or anything. As I'm saying, this is solely for guidance, and I'm reflecting upon what's happened. But it is very surprising how a system can fail a student. I'm sure you can relate. Or how the system can fail a person or people on aggregated numbers in regard to situations like this, right? And I'll get more into the stories, and then it'll become more clear to you guys, okay? Just getting into the story, as I mentioned. This is not a pity party. This is for whoever needs to hear it. That's why I'm here right now. It's for whoever needs to hear it. Not a pity party, okay? This is also a testament. It is a story. It is a reflection, and it is a recognition, okay? It is a recognition. Okay, before we're able to continue, we have to get some definitions in place, okay? I like to do my work properly, and I am very adamant about providing you guys with the best possible tools, or providing whoever needs it with the best possible tools to handle their current or past or even future situation, okay? So, what is bullying? Actually, a Norwegian Swedish scientist, okay, I might be butchering his name a little bit here, but it's Dan Olvus. He's probably one of the most prominent scientists regarding bullying. From his book Bullying in School from 1993, on page 9, a shorter interpretation of his definition of bullying is repeated negative actions over time marked by an imbalance of power or strength, okay? Pay special attention to the last sentence there. Marked by an imbalance of power or strength. It doesn't need to be a combination of the two. It can be either or, all right? Let me exemplify this. Two people on one can be an imbalance of strength, all right? Misuse of power, if you're in a power position and you misuse it, for example, that can be an imbalance of power, all right? One-on-one, like equal playing fields, that does not necessarily qualify as bullying, according to this definition. Just to contextualize it a little bit so that we understand what's going on here, all right? So when we have group behavior directed to one individual, for example, that qualifies as bullying, right? Because it's an imbalance of power. There's an unfair playing field, really, okay? So for everything that follows, as I said, I would like for you to remember the element of imbalance in power or strength. I've always been a big kid, for example, right? A lot of people can think, or a lot of people will mention, well, big kids, how come stuff like that happens to them? They have all this power, right? For example, does that even qualify as bullying, right? Because they have this power that they can use in return, stuff like that, right? That's why this definition by Olvus is more effective and productive, really, because bullying is the element that makes bullying very tricky is that it can so often be systematic. And I think we're not even realizing to what point people are actually able to put this thing into the system. Human psychology is a very interesting element that comes into play in things like this. Group behavior also, and it goes down to it goes all the way down to the kids. All right, and people are usually not even aware of what's happening before you kind of take a meta perspective on it, and you look at it and you see, okay, this is what's transpiring, this is how the pieces are moving and everything. Again, which is also why it's very interesting to look back at, and part of why I wanted to make this video as a reflection. So now to the interesting stuff. I have here a whole bunch of screenshots that my mom provided me with. These are official documents provided to my mom from the Norwegian government related to my situation in Arendal at San Franciscus. Just out of common courtesy and policy, I will not be showing these documents as their official documents. However, it is within my right to speak about all of this, as all of these documents directly concern me and my situation growing up as a kid. It is within my right through Forvaltningsloven paragraph 18, which is the Public Administration Act, as well as our Constitution in Norway, paragraph 100. So now that we've established this, I will be sharing the timeline of what transpired and breaking everything down. I will be comparing the institutions here to, let's say, the American system here, so that people can get like a perspective of who's at play here, just from a Norwegian point of view, to make it clear to what levels my mom had to go to just try for dear life to better my situation, okay? And how, as I said, how the system was able to fail both her and me and my family to the point where we ended up moving, okay? Through these documents, we're actually able to legitimize the situation for what it was and what happened and what is. As I'm saying all over again, it is not pointing fingers, it is recognizing the situation and recognizing what actually happened without putting a cap on it and trying to walk around it. Because we're here to be honest. I'm here to help whoever needs to hear it. That's why I'm putting it out like this. What's even more crazy related to this is that my mom only started to document the things that were happening in 2010. So that's 3 years prior to all these documents being put out by the Norwegian government, all right? So she only documented 3 years out of how many? In the beginning, it was not even 5 years. How many years was it? 6 years, give and take, of this type of treatment, all right? And I want us to put that kind of into perspective here. There's probably people that are still suffering from this that have spent like their entire lifespan going through stuff like this. So every person's situation is specific, right? Some might have gone through this their entire life. Some have maybe only experienced a year. So some 6 like me. We're not here to compare who's had the worst type of experience, okay? We're here to reflect upon the nature of this experience and what we can do about it, what we can learn from it, how we can handle it, right? And just share the story, and to not be alone, as I said, to not be alone in our journey, really. That's the whole purpose here. So we're gonna have a rundown of the timeline here. My mom will forever be my superhero in this story here, because the way that she was pushing so relentlessly for the school and the system to follow up on the situation, to try to better my situation, the way she was trying to hold parents accountable, the way she was trying to support me here, and my sister and my father at the same time. They all deserve recognition here, but really my mom and this legal stuff here, she really put the proper effort through. So I pray that whoever would be in the same situation as me has a parent that would be able to put out the same level of resilience that my mom did. So thank you, Mom. So May 29th, 2013, the first official document for Barneombudet, so that would be the Child Welfare Office here, was sent out to my mom. The document confirmed that the schools are legally obligated to intervene against bullying, and that every failure to do so is a direct violation of the law. Moving on to June 10th, 2013, the county governor, which we call Fylkesmann in Norway, which kind of runs the office of, I think it would translate to the state educational authority, but let's just say the county governor, okay, for simplicity here. The county governor issues a document or a letter to my mom stating that this case is so severe that we've decided to forward it to the national authority. The county governor then forwards the case to UDIR, okay? UDIR translates to Utdanningsdirektoratet in Norway. So this is the Norwegian Doctorate of Education. It's a government entity, okay, that is supposed to oversee all of education in Norway, generally. Then also to keep track of the timeline here, at the same time, Fylkesmann, or the county governor, requires the school to issue what they call enkeltvedtak, which is you could call it an individual decision, okay, where they have to, by law, assess the situation regarding my case specifically. This happens on June 14th, 2013. My mom get access to these documents. So the school then concludes in this document through the enkeltvedtak that they had not upheld my legal right to a safe and supporting psychosocial school environment. That's the conclusion that came out of that. By law, they have to issue it to all the direct parties in this case. So naturally, me, my mom, again, I was not aware of all the document that was happening and everything, but my mom got directly access to this, which is why I'm able to recite it right now. So this had to be issued both to my mom and to the county governor, okay? So that the county governor could actually assess the situation for what it was. Moving over to September 12th, 2013. As I mentioned, this case was sent over to the Department of Education in Norway, UDIR. UDIR then issues a letter to my mom stating that we have received your complaint and decided to open an investigation regarding your son's case. So directly related to this case, the Department of Education in Norway then decides to open an investigation on this school related to my specific story. Later on October 11th, 2013, they also issue a formal notice this time stating that the school's compliance with national law will be reviewed. They then opened a formal federal level investigation, and keep in mind all of this is being sent to my mom, and then the school's being kept in the loop and everything, but this is what the Department of Education is then stating. During this time in 2013, which is something that we'll get into later, is when my parents decided to pull me out of the situation totally, okay? At this point in time, we moved closer to Oslo, which is the capital of Norway, for me to get a fresh start. During this time, 2013, moving over to 2014, we're moving. So after we've moved, my mom received one final statement and update regarding this case. In this final letter from the Department of Education, they said that the final report would be made available on their website actually during spring of 2014. Also, this is totally open on the internet. We could see from that report that there was not proper measures in place or proper infrastructure to support the students' psychosocial environment at this school during this time. Just bringing the government into the picture here, okay? Getting some perspective on this. When it goes to the point where you have to bring the government into the picture and the government themselves recognize that the infrastructure here is not supporting the students, I think that kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? I'm sure you've been waiting a while just to hear, because I just talk all this time, right? But what actually happened? What happened? In the very beginning, as I mentioned, from first grade was pretty okay, you know, getting into the flow of school and everything and all that. Teacher used to describe me as a happy kid that would often contribute to class discussions and stuff. Sometimes I could be what they say, høyrøstet. So they said I could be a bit loud sometimes, but not to the point where it would be a problem. Okay, that's at least from the report what my teacher would describe me like. One of my teachers, at least. Let's just mention, me and my sister at this point in second grade, we were the only black kids, from my recollection, at the school, and we were mixed. Okay. At that point in time, in town, we're not all that many. When you go to Oslo, you're going to see more diversity, but At this point in time in 2000, let's say 2000 when we first started out, 2006 when I went to school. At this point in time, not that much of diversity in the town, okay? And racism became, of course I'm going to mention that, but racism became very prominent, very, very, very prominent. And that began to show in second grade. So I had a couple of upperclassmen that would, as I was talking with my mom, I was telling her like, well, surely, you know, it couldn't have been that bad. She was like, Ben, you were getting your butt beat in second grade. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, do you remember those two guys? I have very, very faint memories of those particular instances. I do remember there being fights, but not to the severe degree that my mom was describing. Apparently, the upperclassmen were picking on me a lot, singling me out due to skin color very often. After those fights, we actually had a principal she was very good, and she would address it right away, and she would end up expelling these guys for 3 days. One of the instances were bad enough for them to get expelled. After that, the physical aspect of it kind of pulled back a little bit, because my mom was also telling me like people were like pulling my hair. I shouldn't be laughing, really. It's just it's ridiculous. She was telling me people were like pulling my hair. I'd come home with scratches, wounds, and hair just all over, right? And this was like early on in the stages where it was more physical, and then it started becoming more verbal and demeaning, really. I guess that's how people make use of bullying the most. It's just very demeaning behavior. Moving on from like second grade to third grade, the upperclassmen were still there. I remember trying hockey, and then one of the guys were also on hockey, and he'd make sure to make me not feel welcome. He'd like take the hockey stick, right? And in the skates you'd have like this space in between, constantly like putting the hockey stick in between the space and like pulling so that I would fall. So every time I would try to learn how to go on skates, he'd make sure that I fell, because he didn't want me there for hockey practice, right? So I tried out hockey maybe 3-4 times. It happened every single practice multiple times. And then see, the thing is kids will also not necessarily talk all that much. Some might be different, but I wouldn't. And I wouldn't be 100% honest with my parents as to why I didn't want to go back to hockey practice, right? So I would just be like, well, it's not really for me. And I'll get back to why I didn't necessarily speak up all the time, right? But these upperclassmen, I remember also one instance, or it's not one instance, several instances, okay? During winter, I was walking to school and then walking up a hill. We had like a back alleyway that we could, or not alleyway, but like a back pretty steep hill that we could take to get up to school. And sometimes it would get very slippery, so we would have to hold on to like the rails on the side to be able to get up. I remember just walking to school one day, and then I just feel something like attaching to my backpack and then like being lunged backwards. And then that was like, these upperclassmen, they were bigger than me too, right? So there we go back again to like the imbalance of power here, right? Lashed onto my backpack and then just like jacked me backwards. I remember just falling on my back and then just like sliding all the way down to the hill, crashing into the wall. And like it took a while to me to realize like what happened, because it was very, sudden, right? But it was one of these upperclassmen, right, that had taken my backpack and just like pulled me back for some reason. I don't know. He was coming up behind me, pulling me back, hit the wall, looked up at him. And I remember this so well. These are some of the specific moments that I remember very well. I remember his face. It was like so nonchalant, or it was just like motionless, emotional, no emotion. I remember him looking like back down at me and just looking like staring me dead in the eye. We didn't say anything. I was staring him like back, and I was just waiting for a reaction, but nothing. He just looked and walked. He just kept on walking. Interesting. Anywho, and then we had another instance down at a church that we had, because as I said, it was a Catholic school, right? So we had a church close by, Trefolderkirken, and I was hanging out with my friends down there. This instance is also explained in the report. We used to have like scooters, or whatever you say, like trick scooters, if that's what you call it. And we'd be down there after school hanging out. Upperclassmen would show up, right? Start throwing out slurs. I'm sure we can all guess what type of slurs that were being tossed around without me needing to say it. Also stating a lot of, it's interesting how sophisticated kids can get sometimes. They also were stating like, well, you don't have the same type of rights as we do. I mean, you're not like us. You're African. You're not, other words and stuff, right? You don't have the same rights. It is explicitly said in the report, all of this stuff, right? And then I remember being backed up into a corner by the same guy that pulled my backpack too, because he had put his bike down. I walked by the bike, and of course my clumsy butt's able to hit his wheel, I think, with my foot, right, as I'm walking past. Well, how do you do that, bro? Okay, I just whatever. I just remember like my foot touching his wheel, right, as walking by. I mean, whatever excuse they can get, right? Starting pushing me up against the wall, slamming me against the wall. People started circling. A lot of like, okay, so I guess there were still physical aspects, right? Pushing me up against the wall several times. And then I remember my friends just standing there and just watching, right? What do you do? Can you blame them? I don't know. But they were just standing there, just watching. And then I also remember like getting this freeze flight response. Like Pulse is just like running, and I guess I have a fight response in me, because I just remember like it just ticking, and then just starting like throwing out whatever I could around me to get him off, because he was in my face, so I was getting really scared, right? So I remember just hitting frantically trying to get him off, right? Surprisingly enough, he did not beat my butt. I do not know why he didn't return anything, but he very clearly did not do anything as a response, except for, throwing out a whole bunch of N-words and more stuff, right? So that's the response I got from that. So from those two upperclassmen, it started. And then I do not know if that showed or like implemented a learned behavior with my classmates, but I think after a couple of years, these upperclassmen, they started at, they went over to middle school, so we didn't see them all that much. Even though middle school and the elementary school were right by each other, they were not that present after this. And then that's where this interesting like shift starts, because it went from upperclassmen to my peers now. So the people in my class, like the people that used to be my friends, would start bullying me. It's so interesting, right? We had this new kid starting, and he was black, same color as me, right? You'd think there would be some unison, and it was in the beginning. It really was. We were friends at the beginning, right? We had things in common. I remember him being over at my place. My parents gave him some of my clothes even. After this, we saw a change. This kid would become the primary driver of the bullying afterwards. Right? And you would think like being part of like a community, right? Or not a community, but a minority, that people would gather together, but instead we saw this division, and he would be on my neck like every single day, on my neck. And he also had this very good, a couple other boys too, had this great ability of getting people on with their things, right? Like mobilizing each other. They had such a great ability. I think very often in group behavior, we are, and especially kids, are gonna find a scapegoat, right? And the group behavior allows for the scapegoat to be put in the blame position so that other people do not have to be subject to that. Sometimes it's just random. They'll start picking on stuff, right? I was very overweight at this point because I guess food was some type of comfort. So they would pick on the kid that was overweight. They'd pick on the kid that was different. And I was also very kind. I've always been extremely kind. My parents always taught me to be kind. And then at this stage in my life, that did not really help. Or I stayed true to my kindness. And I don't regret that, really. So at this point here, the old principal, she moves, or she switches jobs. My mom told me, and I remember this too, there was a new principal in place. That my mom and my dad have been bringing these issues to the principal several times, talking about them so much. On like meeting with parents and everything after school, they were trying so hard to talk to parents, talk to the teachers, tell them about the situation, let them know that this is very serious. It is not how it is supposed to be. Can anybody help? I remember them being very desperate, and hearing them talk about it right now, I hear how desperate they were, right? So this new principal had said, my mom went in for a meeting, and the administration up there, they actually knew my mom because she was there so often that they would just let her in. They wouldn't even call. They would be like, yeah, she's like, I'm going to talk to the principal, and she'd walk straight in. At one of these meetings, he did say like, well, we've tried taking Ben out of the class and put him into like an extra class for people that would need extra. They put me into class for people needing extra attention, okay? As of like because removing the kid that's getting bullied from the class is the way to solve the problem, right? Apparently, right? So they said, we've tried removing him from the class. We don't know what more to do. And my mom was like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, this is your job. You have to find a solution to this. And then the principal said blatantly, I've done what I can. You do what you want. And then my mom, being my mom, she got pissed off. And this is when the whole legal process started. She had been gathering evidence, all of these stories, right? But when he said that was like the cataclysm, or like the main driver or the trigger that would result in everything that happened. There's this one specific story here that kind of it kind of sucks, honestly. Because it's just so sincere, like, and the family dynamic looking at it just makes it even worse. My mom and we would have a ritual. Every single night she would sit on my bedside asking me, how had the day like been going? What happened today? How can we solve it? That was that one little window during the day where I would allow myself to feel. When my mom sat next to me on the bedside, the only time where I would actually open up and talk about the stuff that was happening to me and how I felt about the way I was being treated. Sometimes my younger sister, Marion, as some of you know, she would sleep in my bed because, scared of the dark and stuff, right? So she'd sleep with her brother. She was not more than, I don't know, at this point, maybe 5 years. My mom's sitting next to me and she's talking to me and we're talking and I'm telling her, I was thinking about maybe reading a book in recess because I didn't have any people to hang out with. I would usually hang out with the girls because the girls were kinder, but not always, right? So I told my mom maybe I'll read a book, and she's like, yeah, that's a great idea, Ben, or Benjamin. That's what they call me in Norway. She said that's a great idea. And then I went, no, I can't read a book. And then my mom goes, what? Why can't you read a book, right? And I'm like, well, if I read a book, they're gonna take it from me and they're gonna ruin the book. So I can't read a book. And then, this is the sincere part. my younger sister's sitting next to us this whole time, and she was always aware of what was happening and supporting me. And she put her hand out, and she would touch me, and she went, "But Benjamin, I can read with you." So she was offering, because we went to the same school, and she was luckily not in the same position. So I remember her asking or saying like, "Well, I can read with you, if people don't want to be with you, I can." And I was like, "No, it's fine, Marion. You don't have to do that. It's cool. Thank you." And then my mom's sitting and observing this, right? And she told me, I didn't know this, but during our conversation, she told me, as I walked out of the bedroom that night, I just completely broke down. Just from the whole freaking scenery, right? My dad had to comfort her for such a long time after that, because that was like a breaking point. You can't, the kid cannot even read a freaking book, can't have peace. The amount of times my dad had to comfort my mom, the amount of times my mom had cried, it's just bad, right? So let's just bring in some other examples here, okay? I also remember like my dad, right? My younger sister was a bit more reluctant in approaching him when she was born. During like the first 3 months or something, she didn't want to approach him all that much. But I would always approach my dad. I've always been my dad's boy, and he takes a lot of pride in me. So I know for him to seeing this situation was a very big burden. And he tried in his own way. My dad's a very interesting character, very funny, a bit more aggressive than what I am. And he would try to talk to the bullies, right? And just talk, right? But then that would make things worse too, because the bullies would get pissed off that my dad would talk to them. So they would put that anger out on me. So it wouldn't even help when my dad was trying to talk to them, right? Because it just made the situation worse. So I stopped telling my dad, as I mentioned earlier, right? I stopped telling people what was happening, because I felt like if I was telling people, then they would address it and it would make it worse, right? So just a helpless situation there. My mom also, like my dad, at one point my dad had to pull me aside, and he went, "Benjamin, from now on you hit." And I was like, "Well, you guys have told me not to hit. Like, you've told me not to use force." That was already like, ingrained in me now. So now they're telling me like this different, like it was just like a cognitive dissonance to begin with. But I was like, you got to hit. It's not going to stop. You have to hit, right? I never ended up doing that though, but thank God. But yeah, he tried, and I know it was bothering him a lot, but I still appreciate him trying his best, right? There was also other instances here, like, I remember telling my mom at one time too, like, they were throwing snowballs at me, but not just snowballs. Like, my mom was shocked about this. Like, the kids would take ice. No, they would take ice and form and mold a snowball out of, like, around the ice. So in snowball fights, they would put ice and then put snow on it, and they would throw it at me, and then they would make it a target to throw at me, right? And my mom was telling me also, she was like in the principal's office screaming at him, saying like, "What would you do if my son was blind right now? If he got blind," right? They would be throwing ice, like kids sometimes, bro. Kids, really, they're crazy. And then so there's so many instances like that. The thoughts just get like all blurred because there's just so much crap. I remember like in class, for example, people would tell me, "Ben, go away from my desk." I'd be like, "Why?" Because they're like, "You're dirtying it with your skin color." And even the other black kid would say this, isn't it? It's just astounding. It is really astounding. But I wouldn't be able to talk to people in class because they would tell me to walk away from their desk because I was making it dirty with my skin color. So they would tell me to move, right? There was also a drawing contest, right? I've always loved drawing. and there was a drawing contest in town. I won the drawing contest. I won $50. That's one of the only times I've seen my dad with tears in his eyes, and he was so proud of me. And the entire school got to know about this, right? And then I came home one day and I told my mom, I can't draw no more. She's like, why? And I'm like, well, since I won the drawing contest, now the other kids, they won't let me draw anymore. They're telling me I can't draw anymore, so I can't draw. And my mom told me strictly, you are gonna draw. I didn't draw for an entire year after that, because they told me I cannot draw. So like being pushed down to the level where you cannot even express your creativity, that's the point where the bullying was bringing us to. Just like as a situational aspect, you know, the character just gets like broken down, really. Also, the silence is part of the problem here, from other parents too. Like my parents would address the parents of the bullies, and they'd be like, yeah, well, we tried this and all that, and you know, it was the silence really that was the killer here too. Some parents would pick up on this and they would invite me over to their kids' house, and to the ones that this relate to, I'm very grateful, okay? And you know who you are. But some parents would invite me over because they would recognize, okay, Benjamin is not having that good of a time, so I'll try to have him hang out with my kid to see how it goes, and it would make things better, right? So I really appreciate the parents that would really try to do this. Some parents of the bullies then would invite me over, and I would get bullied at the kid's house, like outside of the parents' supervision. When we were outside, they were bringing their own friends. Also, one time, we'd have like play fights, and then everyone started directing their attention at me. I'd be at the ground, and they would be beating me at the ground at a kid's house when I was supposed to be there as a means of working against the bullying. So I would end up getting bullied at the kid's house. Just the whole freaking system here was rotten. It felt like at the point there was no escaping. That was maybe that was the problem. It just felt like there was no escaping. So I had this one friend, Tobias. He was 4 years younger than me, and he did not go to my school, and he was a neighbor. He was my best friend, living in Arendelle. And we loved Star Wars so much, right? I'd be his master, he'd be my Padawan. We'd walk out after school, we'd grab sticks, and we'd just, fight. He was such a great kid, and he was probably... Tobias, if you're ever watching this, just know that you're one of the reasons why, I was able to keep it together to begin with, during that time, because that was my freedom. This is partially why I love Star Wars so much today. That was my escape. When I came home from school, I could enter into this alternate reality where I was living out my dream in Star Wars alongside Tobias, and I didn't have to think, I didn't have to think, right? So again, going back to kids creating these alternate realities kind of to live in, where they're able to shelter themselves as a means of self preservation. It's astounding. It's very interesting, right? And that's what I did. So Tobias, he played a big role in this. I feel like enough examples have been put out really about everything that kind of some of the things that the bullies would be doing, right? I mean, the sun is getting up, so I would like to move on to some more important things, okay? My mom's final words during this conversation was, she said, "Benjamin, your childhood was a nightmare for more than 6 years. I'm surprised you don't remember everything," she said. "It was straight hell." That's what she finished the conversation with. Just in hindsight, it's just, it's crazy, isn't it? Huh? It's crazy. It's just, what other words are there to use to explain this, right? It's just crazy. Okay, so what happened later in 2013, 2014? We moved closer to Oslo. When moving closer to Oslo, I got this fresh start. I got a new beginning. Nobody knew me. My mom and dad had to sit down with my younger sister and tell her the situation with Benjamin is so bad that we are thinking about moving. And keep in mind, there were 2 other kids and more kids in my class that had switched schools and moved out because of the situation. I was not the only one, all right? There was 2 other kids, a boy and a girl, okay? I will not be naming people, but my parents also decided to move, and my sister said yes. I don't know how old she was even. 10? She understood the situation and she went, yes, we can move, even though she was not experiencing the same stuff. So we moved to a place called Knapstad, and I met my mom. This is one of my mom's best memories. She's told me that. After the first day of school, I ran in the door, and this is in middle school, and I told my mom, like, Mom, I made friends on the first day of school. I was so excited. I made friends, right? My mom started cheering out because she was just so relieved that this had gone well. She had talked with the school and told them about my situation and everything. They were aware of everything that had happened. But I remember it, like, Joachim, if you're watching, bro, like, for Joachim and Thomas, like the first proper friends that I made during the first day of school. And it was just so liberating to have people being excited about you, not having you like put you in a specific type of category, and just being excited about getting to know you. You're new, you know, and then everything just switched from there. Everything switched from there. That's what I mean by it just saved my life. Just being put in that position, getting so many friends, being able to work on myself, starting to develop the type of person that I wanted to become, is what established like that first step into the self-improvement journey that I would begin on, that still continues to this day. So moving to Knapstad, that was like, it was a game changer. Just getting out of the freaking environment, that was a game changer, all right? I can't continue. I can be talking about so much stuff, but I mean, it's just a means to an end here. As I said, it's not out of spite, and I am not like planning. I'm not naming any bullies. I'm not naming people except the people that have done good things, right? Because they deserve to be named. But like bullies and everything, like the mention of their names, it doesn't even apply anymore. It doesn't even apply. The bullies know very well who they are, who they were. Maybe not what they'll become, but they're very aware of their actions in the past. All I can say on that is, like, you make your bed and then you lay in it. In whichever God's eye that is watching, they will be the judge. All right. I've come to terms with all of this, and if I had to go through all of this over again to become the person that I've become today, to become the person that is standing right in front of y'all talking today, I would do it in a heartbeat. I said this to my mom, and she went, "Are you dead ass?" And I went, yes. I would 100%, all of my integrity and sincerity on the line here, go through all of that again if it meant I would become the Benjamin that I am right now. Okay, I would do it all again. So for that, I am actually grateful for everything that happened. And to the people that did wrong, all right, even if they would be watching or not, to people that are doing wrong, okay, may you find fulfillment in this life, but not through me. That will not come through me. To the people watching in general, take responsibility of your actions, because your actions will echo throughout your life, all right? So take responsibility, and then be kind and just care, really, okay? Just care. It's kind of nice. We can hear the birds chirping and stuff. It's nice. You can see the mountain and stuff too. Okay. Before I continue now, I just want to say I'm not a licensed professional or anything. I mean, I'm not a professor on this. I'm just speaking from my own experiences here in trying to help tell my story and potentially give people some insight that can better their situation based off of my situation, okay? So, what are some lessons that I took from this, and then hopefully that you can apply? Lesson number 1, the weight of longevity. Being suppressed to all of this for such a long time and so many years pushed my brain into like a survival state. And that naturally also left memory gaps. Later on, like currently and stuff like that, I don't remember everything, right? Because my brain blocked it out. But that did not necessarily mean healing just because you forget, right? Like it was ingrained into my body all the way down to my posture even. Like up until the move that we did towards also when we went to Knapstad, like my posture was terrible. And people were telling my mom, friends of my mom were telling me like, what's happened to Benjamin? Like he's walking straight, you know, he looks happier, he looks confident. So like it was just like it's more than just about forgetting and remembering things. It's more than that. It's remembered in your body too. We live by our experiences, which is what kind of forms our person, that and society and other aspects too, right? But you can't just erase elements of your past. Those will linger, and unless you address them, you know. So, lesson number 1. Trauma over a longer period of time, or bad experiences over a longer period of time, can leave memory gaps and stuff. Not a licensed professional, but your body, like it still lingers, okay? And if you're carrying unexplained weight inside of you, that might be the reason why. Or it can be something else. It's something to think about. So what we can do is recognize it for what it is. Survival, okay? And then you honor yourself for that, right? Number 2, my parents' fight and how rare it is. I cannot stress enough, when you see something that is wrong, don't just stand and watch. They'll say, well, we all go by this as long as it's not my kid, right? As long as it's not me, right? Don't just stand and watch. My mom's fight was so important in all of this. It's just paramount in situations like this. If you're a parent that is watching this, okay, you have to understand the importance of your role in your kid's life. Or if you're just a person supporting somebody that is going through the same thing, you have to understand the importance of support that you have towards this person. You have to recognize it, okay? Because it means so much. Even if they're not even recognizing it right there and then, they probably will later on. Lesson number 2. If you're a parent, show up, be loud, be annoying, be relentless, because that's what I needed. That's what my parents did for me. And you need to be that parent for your kid, all right? Number 3, institutional failure. As we've seen throughout this whole story, there has just been a train wreck from the institutional side, right? Even the government recognizes this. And we can't always rely on the system to support us. I'm sure a lot of people in a lot of different avenues and routes in life have experienced that. We cannot always expect the system to help us. So what do? This leads us to lesson number 3. Systems will fail people. Do not naively trust the system to do you right all the time. If there's something wrong, you have to document. You have to advocate, you have to escalate, and then you have to push, okay? Because if not, who's going to make that change for you? Number 4 here, double rejection. So being punished for my skin color was one thing, right? But then also being bullied by somebody of my same skin color just made me kind of, you know, what's happening here, you know, right? It just like confused as like what's even the motivation? What is wrong with me that makes all freaking sides here like kind of target me? Lesson 4 here is that sometimes even the places where you think you should belong will reject you. That it's just an ugly truth. It can be lonely, all right? I don't wish that on anybody, but that loneliness can build strength and empathy that you will be carrying for the rest of your life. A lot of the hardships that we meet in life are tests. They're trials, and they're sent our way to build character, and then we choose what we want to do with those lessons. 5, the internal conflict of kindness versus toughness. My dad telling me like, Ben, you need to hit, like, Ben, you actually need to fight back here, had such a big level of, as I said, cognitive dissonance, right? That I was having conflicting thoughts and attitudes within myself and my persona. And I think in hindsight, there's power in acknowledging that being kind is not an indicator of being weak. The fact that I never hit might even be the reason why I'm able to stand here and tell this story today with reconciliation instead of bitterness. Lesson number 5, it is okay to struggle with trying to be kind in a world that is trying to harden you. But then you have to trust me, Staying kind is his own form of toughness. Number 6, the bedtime ritual. Having that bedtime ritual, having that escape, having that window of vulnerability where you're actually able to process what is happening in regard to your situation was very, very important. Talking about things is very, very important. Having a system, a network that supports you in this talk is very important. It's kind of a psychological pattern here where humans also and children create a safe space where they're actually able to open up and talk about what's happening, right? So it's as a way of loading off, kind of dumping off the workload. So lesson 6, whether it's bedtime talks, whether it's journaling, or whether it's just quiet reflection, create a space where you're able to safely release, okay? Because that might just save you. 7, Star Wars and escapism, okay? As I did with Tobias, create your reality. Create a mental sanctuary. That's really what we're doing. Create a mental sanctuary here where you're just able to let your imagination just carry you away. Let your passion show. Live in it. Enjoy it. Mental sanctuaries, they're brilliant in handling tough situations. It was more so in Star Wars for me to build a world where I was actually able to breathe for once. So lesson number 7 here is to find your Star Wars and find your sanctuary. It's not running away, it's protecting your spirit until you're able and strong enough to face reality as it is. The only thing I will say about this point here is that we do not want to get lost here, okay? It's way too easy to find a sanctuary, find the comfort zone, and then just stay in it, and then decide to ignore all of reality perpetually. That is not what we're trying to get at here, okay? We're talking about giving yourself a break, but I do not want you to get lost in it. Lesson number 8, the silence in the parent meetings. I do not need to elaborate too much around this, but the parents being silent, the observers being silent, the people watching everything that happens, the people that continue to watch everything that happens. If you're in general being silent when it comes to suffering, okay, and you're observing it, you're part of the problem. Speak up and do something. Be somebody for once. Number 9, the drawing contest, okay, and the suppression of creativity. People will continue to try and dim your light, as my classmates did. They will try to find avenues of suppressing you. Not always, I'm not saying everyone is doing this, but the people that, there is malevolence in the world, okay? The people that are more, let's say, relying on that malevolence, right, to build themselves up for some freaking reason, they will continue to diminish you because that's just part of their personality. Refuse to dim your light for anyone, no matter who they are. Do not dim your light, all right? That's lesson number 9. Lesson number 10, the move. Sometimes just getting out of the environment is what needs to be done, okay? And that's what was done for me, and that's what helped in my case. When I finally changed schools, I didn't change who I was. I was just given the room to show the person that I wanted to be. When I moved, I didn't switch up like all of a sudden. I've always been me. I've always been the same. The only thing is that when I switched schools, I was allowed to be me for once. Without anybody telling me who I was, I could tell you who I am, right? That's what was made available for me when I switched schools. An analogy here. To have a plant grow to its fullest potential, you don't switch out the plant. You switch out the environment where the plant is growing. If the plant is not growing properly, it's not necessarily the plant's fault. It might be the soil. It might be the amount of sun that it's getting. It's the environment. So sometimes switching the environment of the plant allows for it to blossom properly. Lesson number 10 here then. You can be the same person, but in the right environment, you'll bloom. Okay, sounds a bit cringe when I say it, but there's a truth to it. If you're suffering, sometimes the solution is to leave the soil that you're currently in. That's what I'm getting at. Lastly, number 11, dignity over bitterness. The way I close this story, or my personal story, is I do wish mercy on my bullies, okay? But I withhold forgiveness. Not because I hold on to hate, but because forgiveness is not something I owe. And I want you to remember this too. Forgiveness is not something you owe. Choosing not to forgive my bullies is not about staying or being angry at all. It's about protecting my peace, okay? It's about dignity. Or said differently, we can say it in another way, okay? Forgiveness isn't something you owe. Forgiveness is something you decide. And for them, I have chosen no. And then again, as I said, this is not bitterness. As you said, you see me smile throughout this entire video. It is dignity. It's that simple. So you can come to terms with that. People say you should forgive. No, you shouldn't necessarily forgive. You don't owe forgiveness. Okay? If you're able to find in yourself that you're able to forgive, that is great. Very good for you. If you're not able to find that forgiveness, you do not owe them that. It's just knowing that for some people, they will never deserve like access to my heart again. And that's okay. Closing words here, all right? If these lessons speak to you, hold on to them. This story here is mine, but these lessons are for all of us. If you've been through something like this, I need you to know something. Pain does not define you. What you choose to build from it does. For a very long time, I did not remember all of the specifics of what happened. And maybe that was just my mind protecting me, right? But now I consider and face it, for a long time, I've been able to sit here and face it and realize I am not what they did to me. I am what I decided to do with it. The reason why I have some type of resilience now later in life too is because I was like, as a young kid, I was faced with hardships. I had to tackle it. I had to grow up. So I grew up. That's why a lot of y'all see me being, that's why I'm more mature right now, because I had to grow up. There's been other things in life that has made me grow up early too, right? And this goes back to the fact that I do not want to take this experience away from my life. This suffering made Benjamin. Benjamin would not be without this suffering. This suffering was necessary. Suffering for me in general is necessary to build character, to build the man that I want to become, to build the man I have become. It is a necessary evil. I also want to say that you do not have to forgive. You do not have to forgive people that hurt you. You don't have to make sense of what they did, but you can make sense of what you want to become because of it. Take the pain, take the silence, take the isolation, and then create empathy from it, right? Take the injustice and let it fuel your integrity. Take what they tried to tear down and try to build something from it. If you're personally sitting in darkness right now, I promise you there's other people in other places and other chapters of your life that are waiting for you. It gets better. All right, that's what I can say. That's what my mom always says. It always gets better. And when you get there, like me, you'll stand taller. You'll speak louder, even louder than I did in class. I want to say this: you're not broken. You're becoming. So, the boy I still see. I have a lot of empathy for the boy that I still see. When I look at this younger version of myself, it's as I'm looking at a different individual. My road of self-improvement has been so long, I feel, that sometimes I don't recognize the things that I went through and the person that I'm looking at. But it is me. I am me now and I was me then. And that's all me. And I feel like this deep sadness when I look at him, because I know exactly how he feels. Exactly what it feels like. And it would be so nice to just reach out and being able, as I'm saying, it's so weird because it feels like I'm looking at a different individual. So we're talking like a 7 to 10-year-old kid here. It's like freaking heartbreaking just looking at him. And as I'm saying, it's not a pity party. It's there's just something where I want to comfort him, but I can't. I want to reach out, but I can't. I feel very good now, but I know he doesn't feel good, right? And then I know that he will go through hardships, and I know he's currently going through hardships, or at that point then, and that is something he has to go through. So it's like this weird feeling of wanting to help, but I can't, because I know it is necessary for him, specifically for young Benjamin, for the boy I still see. I just know what that suffering will build. which is why I cannot reach out. There would be no other way for me to become the person I was supposed to be. I had to struggle, I had to suffer, and I had to learn. It's very strange, like having this type of meta relationship with myself at two different points in time, feeling like two different individuals, but then at the same time the same. Like I feel empathy and remorse for him, and then I also know that if I could go back, I wouldn't stop it. You know, I wouldn't stop it because I understand the necessity of it. As painful as it would be to watch, I know that he needed it, and I think he knows that too. It feels like that younger version of myself transcends time right now. It might sound very weird to you, but it really does feel like that. I can't explain it fully. It's like we're both part of the same mission, because we're me. And maybe, you know, maybe, just maybe, the boy I still see finally sees me too. If I can help one person, in sharing my story, I have succeeded. That was my mission. That's what I said. This isn't about me anymore. As I've said multiple times, this is for the boy I still see. This is for the people that I don't see. And it is for anyone who needs someone to sit with them until they can tell their own story. And if you can't yet, I'll sit here for you until you can.